Good morning, everyone. I'd like to thank you all for joining me this morning. Special thanks to Florida Congresswoman Debbie Wasserman Shultz for being here today to support our message of economic reform, and to Nancy Garland, candidate for state representative in Ohio's 20th district, who is here to show that Democratic women at all levels of government must work together to rebuild our nation in the face of our country's worst economic crisis in decades. Many thanks go out as well to everybody else who made it here today. We're here today at the abandoned site of this former Big Bear market in light of a recent report highlighting the fact that nearly 1,100 factories and companies in Ohio shut down or had mass layoffs under the Bush administration. Big Bear supermarkets suffered greatly from a crumbling Ohio economy. Store conditions and sales declined for years, and ultimately the stores, which were based mainly in Ohio and West Virginia, closed in 2004 when Penn traffic bought them out. These layoffs and shutdowns are the result of failed Republican economic policies, and it's clear that it's time for a change. We can't afford 4 more years of the same. I'd like to introduce to you now someone who needs help in Washington to reverse the last 8 years of failure. Congresswoman Debbie Wasserman Shultz has been fighting for change by standing up for Florida's working families. She's here today to reiterate why it's so important that Democrats work together to rebuild our failing economy. Congresswoman?
Thank you. Thank you so much, Sharon. I'm really pleased to be able to join Sharon today in her campaign to be elected to the United States House of Representatives. She's absolutely right. We need to expand the Democratic majority in Congress so that we can make sure that we can fulfill the promise of moving this country in a new direction. Ohio has one of the highest unemployment rates in the country, 7.6%, higher than the average unemployment rate across the United States. And we have got to have a Congress that will adopt economic policies that can reverse those trends. To continue to elect members of Congress that support the NAFTAs and CAFTAs, that ship our jobs overseas, send our jobs to Mexico and other countries, is just absolutely unconscionable. We have to have progressive, forward-thinking trade policy that is going to grow American jobs here, that is going to invest in our infrastructure, make sure that folks in Ohio have opportunity, and that in towns like this one, that kids who grow up here have a way to go to school and then come back and live here as adults so that they can bring their children up, and generation to generation we can improve the towns and communities of the districts in Ohio. It's so incredibly important that we work together to do that. I'm really pleased to be able to join Sharon here. We have such an opportunity to elect someone who has been involved in the community, who has been a passionate advocate for people who need a voice in Washington. The big businesses, they've had their voices in Washington. They've had their turn for the last 8 years. We do not need to send another George Bush, John McCain rubber stamp to Washington. They have plenty of those already. We need Sharen Neuhardt to be elected to the United States House of Representatives so we can move this country in a new direction, and I'm really pleased to be able to be here. Thank you.
Thank you, Congresswoman. Last week, the Ohio Democratic Party released a report highlighting the nearly 1,100 factories and companies in Ohio that shut down or had mass layoffs under the Bush administration, or just so far under the Bush administration. And most of those jobs went overseas. Here's some facts. Those shutdowns and layoffs cost Ohio more than 180,000 jobs. That's one company shutting down and laying off workers nearly every 3 days, and that's an average of more than 60 jobs lost each day for 8 straight years. The Central Ohio region, in fact, ranks second in the state for shutdowns and jobs lost. Franklin County itself has lost nearly 19,000 jobs in the last 8 years. The county has suffered almost 170 shutdowns. Those are factories and businesses like this one that we're at today, where our neighbors used to work. This is real, folks, and it's simply unacceptable. You see, this worker neglect is a fundamental difference between me and my opponent, Steve Austria. He stood idly by for the last 8 years while our state's economy crumbled. He voted against raising the minimum wage and against fair treatment for workers injured on the job, and he voted to make it harder for Ohio's workers to organize. That too is just simply unacceptable. When I'm your Congresswoman, I will work together with members like Congresswoman Wasserman Shultz in Washington and Nancy Garland here in Ohio to rebuild our state and the nation so that we can avoid the mass layoffs, factory and business shutdowns, and unemployment we suffer with today. To start, I'll oppose trade agreements that cost Ohio jobs, and I'll fight for federal research and development funds for the 7th Congressional District. Ohio is primed to play a pivotal role in refueling our nation's economy. We must retool the state's automotive industry to make more fuel-efficient vehicles that will not only create decent wage jobs with good benefits, but will also protect our national security and wean us from our dependence on foreign oil. It's time for a change, and I'm ready to work hard to rebuild our economy. And I'm ready to work with women like Congresswoman Wasserman Shultz and Nancy Garland to do this. Nancy?